Welcome back to the Daily Mastermind. George Wright III with your daily dose of inspiration, motivation, and education. I'm your host, and if this is the first time you're listening to the show, every weekday we want to provide you with what you need in order to create your best life, and that's battling your mind. A lot of times it takes not just the skills and strategies, but it takes that mindset, that inspiration, motivation, education. So we're doing these 5 to 10 minute episodes during the week, but we really want you to understand that there are a lot of other resources available to you through the Daily Mastermind. We've got the Daily Mastermind mobile app, which is free. We're going to be doing weekly interviews that we drop, as you notice, occasionally about once a week, where we interview thought leaders, experts, everyone from celebrities, authors, successful business individuals, in order to give you the strategies, the ideas, what they've had to overcome, ways they've done that, what to do in the current marketplace. And so our goal here, my goal with the Daily Mastermind, is to help you to create your best life. It's to really unleash the potential that you have deep inside you, but maybe you need that additional help. The idea of having a mastermind is 2 or more minds working together in common purpose towards a common goal. And your best life is our common goal. So let me get you started with the quote of the day. The quote of the day from Walt Disney is, "All our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them." If we have the courage to pursue them. I really love that because I do believe that we all have inside of us what we need to be able to be successful, but it just takes the courage. It takes overcoming your fears, which is a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. But before I get into that, I want to remind you that the prosperity pillar of the week that we're focused on throughout the week is I focus on solutions. I focus on solutions. So that's a great segment into this topic of fear today, because one of the problems most of us face is fear, and fear of all kinds of different things we're going to talk about throughout the podcast, but it takes courage to overcome those fears. I was listening to an episode of Andy Frisella's podcast this morning, and he was interviewing Lewis Howes. Lewis Howes, if many of you haven't tuned into his podcast or his programs through the School of Greatness, I'd encourage you to do that. But they were talking about the idea, because Lewis has a new book coming out. What is it that stops most entrepreneurs from achieving their dreams? What is it? And this I believe can, translate to any area of your life. What's keeping you from doing what you need to in your life? And it really, I agree wholeheartedly, it comes down to a lack of confidence. Most of the time, it is a lack of confidence. And I don't mean artificial, I mean really deep down your self-esteem and confidence. And the reason we lack that confidence and what holds us back is these fears that you are facing. And there's really 3 fears that he talks about and that I 100% believe are what's holding us back. First, it's the fear of failure. Second, it would be the fear of success. And third, the fear of judgment. I mean, think about that for a minute. Obviously, many of us fear failure. We don't want to attempt something because we might fail at it. But the more and more I go throughout life, and the more and more you're going to realize if you look back, it's only through failure that you create success. So when you learn to reframe your failure, then that's when you can go to the next level. And fear of success, you may not think that's a real deal, but success carries with it weight. The weight of success and responsibility and things that come with that, we may get into a different episode into this. But fear of success might be something. I want you to ask yourself if that's a problem for you. And then I think right now, most people, the majority of people, they fear judgment. They fear what other people are going to think, how they're going to look, what people will think of them. So I want to ask you what you really suffer from. What is it? I mean, could it be a mixture of all 3? Or is there one that's really, really plaguing you? And I want you to think about that today, because the solution, obviously, is going to be to face your fears. It's going to be to hit them straight on. Because the only way you truly develop belief and self-confidence is by facing your fears. And bottom line is that it requires discipline. It requires consistency. That's why we talk about these daily rituals and the importance of having daily rituals, because you can't just hit your fear. It's like going into the gym one time and expecting to get a result. It's the consistency and discipline over time. And I promise you, when you face your fears with consistency and discipline, you're going to build self-confidence whether or not you're successful. Because you're going to have that feeling that you did what it took, and you're going to feel that confidence. It's going to increase your belief. In fact, I was thinking about it the other day, because there's so many things over the years that I've feared. Believe it or not, even public speaking. Public speaking is something that I've had a fear of. I've always kind of suffered myself from that fear of judgment or failure. And it's surprising, I know, because a lot of people are like, what do you mean, man? You've got all these levels of success. You've done all these things in your life. You've met all these successful people, lived a great lifestyle. But that doesn't mean you don't have fears. It may be that certain successful people just face their fears. And so why is it that we feel, like even myself, I'm thinking, why is it that you face this fear of failure and judgment? And it boils down to all kinds of things, insecurities, wondering what you look like, what will happen if you do the wrong thing. And, over time, I've learned to actually just overcome those fears, not so much destroy them, but overcome them by learning skills that help me, by repetition, by doing it anyway. And so you get a little more comfortable with it, but the fears don't necessarily go away. In fact, I remember one time I had this fear, because I've had this fear of public speaking, especially in the early days. I don't so much anymore. But I fear the speaking in public, because like many of us is like, man, what are they going to think? Am I good enough? You have self-confidence issues and things. And, I will note, by the way, over time, I learned to compensate for my weaknesses by sort of hiring other people. Like I would hire professional speakers. Because as many of you know, I've done events all over the world for financial education groups and business development companies and asset protection. But I've always hired world-class professional speakers so I didn't have to. And that's interesting, because how many of you compensate for your weakness and your fears rather than face it? That's kind of one of the things that I did quite a bit that helped me to create success, by just compensating for my fears. But I remember an event I was doing in Canada one time. We were in, I can't remember exactly where it was in Canada, but we were doing a series of events on stock investor education. And the goal was to sell a stock investor workshop. And, I remember that the speaker got up the first day and he did kind of okay. And then on the second day, because we'd usually go to 4 different cities in 4 different days, on the second day, he got up and he just did horrible. Now, he might have had the best presentation of his life, but didn't sell anything, felt bad, really lost a lot of opportunity. And when you're a world-class professional, stage speaker like a Tony Robbins, Robert Kiyosaki, these guys, when you don't do well, people do judge you, because that's your job, right? And I remember it really bothered him. And so we get to the third day and we're getting ready to start. All the people are funneling in. We got this room full of people. And, I said to our road crew director, I said, where's the speaker? We're going to get started. And he says, oh, he's not coming down. And I'm like, what? I mean, what are you talking about? There's a lot of people here. Oh, he's in bed. He's not coming down. He's just distraught. And what had happened was this speaker had his ego and his confidence tied so much to his performance that he literally was in bed with the covers over his head, so he didn't want to go down. And it was partly because he knew we were going to have another speaker come in and kind of replace him. And so he just had this whole thing. And I'm like, bro, you got to get down there, man. What's going to happen? And I could sense pretty quickly it wasn't going to happen. He wasn't coming down. So it's kind of a moment of truth for me. I'm thinking, whoa, all right, I'm faced with my fear. Do I cancel this event, tell all the people to go home, or do I step up? Do I just step in? And I didn't have any preparation. I'm not a professional speaker. Definitely didn't have the confidence at the time. But guess what? I did have the knowledge. How many of us have the knowledge to do what we want to do, but we put it off because we pretend we're not prepared, or we don't have the confidence, or we're not ready, or we got to get prepped. And in that moment, and this happened many, many times in my life, I just said, F it, we're going. Let's go. And so I went to the room, and imagine not knowing up until 5 minutes ahead of time that you're going to speak, but now you're going into a room, and you normally hire a professional, high-end, extremely high-paid. These guys are making $500,000 to $1 million a year, and I'm going to go in and replace him, right? So I'm walking up. You could just imagine like the sweat is starting to build, and people are staring at me, and I know what they were thinking. They're thinking, who is this guy? Like, that can't be the speaker. There's no way. And obviously, like I'm dressed nice, and I play the part. I was the CEO of the company. I own the company, so it's not like I didn't look professional. But this is what's going through my mind, right? People can sense I wasn't the speaker. They're all sitting there with their arms folded, judging. No one's talking. It's quiet as a freaking library. You could hear a pin drop. And I'm just up there like, blah, 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 I don't even know what, and so I'm going through this slide presentation. I'm literally reading the slides that the speaker had, like reading them from the screen, and, only looking back once in a while. And I told myself, look, just talk fast, sound confident, all the skills that I had learned, work the room, move around, all the stuff that I actually train speakers to do. And I struggled through it, and I finally finished. And guess what? No, I didn't do very well. You might think that, great success story. No, I didn't hit a home run. In fact, I don't think I sold anything. Maybe, one or two people, I don't know. It's not the point. But let me tell you another version of this story, because at the end of the day, my mind had done all these things, but there was really only about 12 people at the event, even though I thought it was like, can you imagine like your fears, you just quadruple everything out there. But guess what? Those people, they had questions at the end. They gave great feedback. They were amazed, and they were like, wow, I didn't know all these principles of how to invest, and that was thank you so much. And, even our crew and staff at the time were like, wow, man, you got up at the last minute. How did you do that? And I'm thinking I just completely blew it, right? And, obviously I got a new speaker to come out the next day. I mean, that's not really the point. But here's the point I want to make for you. Did I overcome my fear of speaking? No, not at that time, not at that point. But I did learn a couple of things from facing my fear. I gained confidence because I was like, I could do that. Like by doing it, I was like, that was not so bad. And I learned 3 other things. Number 1, facing your fears head on was something you can do. And second, there were strategies that I learned to be able to deal with my fear. Work in the room, talking faster, being more prepared. When you prepare, preparation can take away those fears. But the most important thing that I found is I figured out that I can gain the reward of confidence just by facing the fear. You don't have to be successful in facing your fears to gain the confidence. And that's the goal. The goal is to get confidence through facing your fears. So what I want you to do this week is this. We're a little over on time, but I want you to do a couple things for me. Number 1, I want you to write down some of your greatest fears. And I want you to pick one of them. Just any one of them. It might be making a cold phone call. It might be speaking. It might be talking to somebody you never knew. It might be approaching somebody. Pick one of those and just hit it this week. Do it anyway. And do it often. Do it often. Face your fears often. And look and see what happens with that. Look at the confidence that will build. And if you focus on, rather than focusing on whether you're going to be good or whether you're going to get a success, focus on the reward of knowing that you did it. Knowing that you created the ability and the courage to punch through your fear regardless. And I promise you, that road leads you to confidence. And that confidence leads you to success. And ironically, the more you do it, the better you're going to get anyway. And that's my message for this episode. I hope that's something that'll help you. I hope you'll do me a favor and share the show. If you'll share the show, it really helps us to kind of grow our show, grow our influence, and help other people. So if you've learned something today, share the show and hit me up on the Daily Mastermind at the Daily Mastermind on Instagram or Facebook. Obviously, you can contact me directly on our website, Daily Mastermind. I even do some free strategy sessions once in a while on there. So look forward to talking with you more tomorrow. I hope you have an amazing day. Once again, this is the Daily Mastermind. We'll talk with you soon.